Hey everyone, and welcome back to our DC Films podcast. This is episode 13, I believe, where this episode is probably going to end up being one of my favorites, in that all we're going to be talking about is Zack Snyder today, and I'm glad we ended up doing it this week because Zack Snyder just released his new short film, Snow Steam Iron. He dropped it on the new social media website or app, Vero, which is really cool. But we'll get more into that a little later. But joining me are a lot of people who've been on the podcast before. So if you guys want to go around and reintroduce you guys yourselves as you guys always do.
I'm Danielle. I'm a Social Justice League on Tumblr.
Hi, I'm Jean. I'm back from a few weeks break. I'm Batch Activity on Tumblr.
Hey, I'm Lily from Lily Loves Comics on Tumblr.
Hey everyone, my name is Ertom, I'm Grey Kunglaw on Tumblr.
Hello again, I'm Katie, I'm Story Advocate on Tumblr.
Alright, thank you guys for coming around and do this. I know we kind of took like a week off last week because we were our schedules have been like kind of all over the place. But But yeah, I'm glad we're able to come back and do this one, because especially for this one, I've been kind of wanting to do this one for a while now, and especially with everything going on lately and everything that's been going on like with Zack ever since he lost Autumn and just how the media's been treating him. I just wanted to be able to do at least kind of dedicate one podcast to him, because frankly he's gone through so much, and I just want to show, I know he knows this, but I just wanted to show him that there are a lot of fans who still care about him and his well-being, and that we are following him no matter where he goes, and going to show that like he can make like a 4-minute short film on a really unknown social media platform, and we all still go crazy about it. And I don't think a lot of filmmakers can really do that,
Yep.
And for me, and oddly enough, to kind of just start off like when my exposure to Zack first started, I saw Watchmen. I think I was like either 8th grade or freshman year for me. It was after it was already on TV, because I watched it on like Showtime or something at my grandma's house. And this is back when I was like just like super deep into like Smallville and like the Dark Knight movies and like all that stuff at the time. So I was browsing through the channels and like in the little like information, like the little like synopsis blurb, it's like, based on this DC graphic novel. I'm like, I literally never heard of it before. So I'm sitting there watching it from the beginning, and I'm like, wow, like just from that opening sequence of Watchmen, just going over like the Minutemen with Carlo Gugino and Jeffrey Dean Morgan in the original team or whatever. And I'm like, wow, that looks really stunning. And then I literally sat there in awe for the next like 2.5 hours. I'm like, wow, that was a great movie. And I didn't even know who Zack Snyder was at the time, but that was my first exposure to anything he had really done. I know he did 300, but even to this day, that's like one of the few movies of his that I still haven't seen. That's just one of those ones that I was always like, I'll just get to it eventually, and it's been like 10 years now and I still haven't seen it. But in a way, I'm also kind of glad that Watchmen was the one for me, because obviously I lean more towards superhero stories anyway. But I'm glad like that was the one, because that's like my first exposure to him as a director, and being able to tell these like deep and complex stories within like the shell of a comic book movie. And going into Watchmen, and because I didn't know what to expect, because I had never heard of any of these characters, and I'm like, okay, this guy is kind of like a mixture of like a Superman-y, Batman-y kind of guy. And then you got this blue guy who walks around naked throughout the entire movie. But like other than that, like it was really like for someone who didn't know who the Watchmen were at the time, or who Zack really was at the time, like I was really surprised by what he was able to do with Watchmen. And again, as someone who had no idea who those characters were, he was able to get me drawn into that world. And I walked out of that movie, walked out meaning like I sat on my grandma's couch thinking about it. But I was done watching that movie, and I'm like, wow, like I sat there for a good while. I'm like really sitting thinking about the effect that movie had on me. And most movies, especially when I was like a young teenager, like didn't have that kind of effect on me. So for me, that was like for that being my first real exposure to Zack, I shouldn't have been shocked when he blew me away with Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman, because he'd already kind of done that with Watchmen for me. Yeah, so if you guys want to each go around and kind of start with your first exposure to Zack and his filmmaking, and any of you guys can start. You guys can go ahead.
I can definitely relate to that lingering effect kind of thing. Because I know that the first Zack Snyder movie I ever saw was 300, and I was super super into it for a while. The weird thing is that everyone was, so it's kind of weird for everyone to be like, oh, Zack Snyder, because like I just remember the time when he was like king of the bro movies, and I don't understand. I don't understand what broke, and I've been trying to figure that out for 5 years now. So if anybody has some insights, DM
Turns
me.
out he's not actually a dude, bro.
He's
Maybe
not
that's
the
what-
dude
maybe that's what
they
it
wanted
is.
him to be.
And they feel betrayed. And then also, like, society's fickle, man. We are so fickle. We'll raise them high and then decide we're tired of them and drop them low. So,
But from a storytelling perspective, 300 was so fascinating to me because I really struggled with the movie because I was like, what is it? Like, what is happening here? Like, this isn't like, I mean, like, I think Snyder gives you something that you don't really expect, and that you maybe like for a minute kind of feel like, I don't know if I want this. I don't know, like, if this is what I wanted. And I definitely had that really, really organic feeling in the theater, being like, I don't know what we're supposed to be doing here because there's no map. He took the map, and that was really interesting to me. And it didn't dawn on me until like 2 hours after the movie, and I was really and that's the thing, is just sitting and thinking about it and just being like, what's happening? And I figured out the frame of the movie and the way that he told that story and the way that he got away with being as arch and fantastical and humongous as he was in this story, and was just amazed by like how simple the mechanism was, but also how like subtle it was. It was like, usually when something's that simple, you can see the machinery of it. At least I usually can, because I pay attention to story that way when I'm watching something. And this was something where the machinery of that was totally hidden to me. And I think that when that happens, it really gave, I guess, like cerebral folks like me who just come in with like a rhetorical lens and just go in and like are a little bit jaded about the process of making a film just by virtue of knowing too much about the way a story is put together. It gave me a chance to really be kind of, it was refreshing. It kind of gave me a chance to watch a film in a very childlike way that I hadn't in a really long time. And I felt that way. I felt that way through nearly every Snyder movie I've seen, is this ability to, like, the fact that he breaks those rules catches me off guard just enough to make me feel like something magical is happening. And that magical feeling is something that I felt like was really like something that I lost when I started studying story, and when I started picking things apart and having the impulse to pick those things apart, because I mean, it is part of the fun for me. But I think that it's really amazing to me that I can still feel that magic and still actually like take a fine-tooth comb and really like go through these things, and the magic doesn't fall apart.
Yeah, absolutely.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like something that's really common throughout all of Zack's films, which is becoming a lot less common with directors nowadays, which is just the ability to, sit back after a movie and just have all these thoughts like going through your head, and like having to re-examine the material and think about the movie for a few hours before you actually understand what he was trying to say, or like have like a million different ideas of what he could be saying to you through the movie, and just try to come to your own conclusions about it over time after you watch it, and having time to think through it. Like, there's so many movies right now which just spoon feed you all the material, and like I think the moment I sold my soul to Zack Snyder was like 2 hours after watching Sucker Punch, because I'd been I never watched it before. Like, I heard about it, and I heard all the horrible things people were saying about it, and how it was, it was this big sexist mess or something like that, right? And I was reading up about it in a bunch of different articles before I actually watched it. So I went in knowing that, like, there was a lot more complexity to it than you would see on the surface. So I tried to go in, like, with an open mind, and I watched it, and I was just completely, like, confused. Like what you were saying about 300 earlier on, it's just that there were so many things to think about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't sure how I was supposed to feel about it. And that was already with the knowledge of, like, a bunch of different people's interpretations of the movie. And I was trying to come up with my own interpretation of it, or at least how I felt about it. And I just couldn't decide on anything until, like, 2 hours after. I just, sat there in silence. Like all of you have been saying, like, after watching it, you just sit there for I don't know how many hours thinking about it and trying to, like, rethink about what you just saw, and think about all the different things you've just seen been delivered to you by Zack in this movie before you can, like, actually decide on something. And, like, once you get to that point of, like, everything starting to make sense in your head, like, that's the moment when, like, you've sold your soul to Zack Snyder. Like, you can't there's no going back from that. Like, that it's just some kind of next level movie going experience that you hardly ever get nowadays. Like, maybe last time, you can get that with a lot of, like, the old classic movies, especially, like, Hitchcock films or something like that, where you can, like, really pick apart every little bit of, like, visual storytelling that goes into these movies, and, like, the complexity of the plot and stuff. But nowadays it's really hardly ever like that anymore. Like, maybe it's just that, like, we know too much about how stories are created, that it, like, becomes a bit too easy to pick apart the way writers work nowadays. But, like, Zack just does this incredible layering of, like, visual literary storytelling, like, not just in the way he does his films, not just the way he composes each shot. It's like the writing, the editing, the visual composition of one shot alone compared, and, like, the combination of that entire experience into, like, this one movie, which has, like, a dozen different things packed into it. Like, each movie is just, like, this big, complex, I don't know what it is, it's like amazing creation, and every movie can just be, like, you can just think about it and write about it and ponder over it for, like, the rest of your life.
It's true.
Pretty much. Oh my gosh, yes. Can you tell that I sold my soul to him?
We're okay with it.
Yeah, like, for me, like, that moment was, like, walking out of Man of Steel for the first time, because, like, not that I was ever, like, skeptical of him, really. It was just, when he was first announced as the director of Man of Steel, I'm just like, oh, the guy who did Watchmen. I'm like, that would have been my first choice, but, I'm still in the mindset of, like, I'm still not wrapping my head around the idea of Smallville being over. So I wanted, like, Smallville to kind of continue on in the film somehow. But for me, like, so I heard that Zack was announced, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. And then, like, every little bit that was released from the movie, whether it was the first image of Henry as Superman, or the two different Comic-Con teasers they released from Jor-El's perspective and Jonathan's perspective, it was then that I'm starting to get, like, wow, I think Zack is really starting to get a hang of what Superman is supposed to be in the modern day. And that was before I even seen the movie. And for me, it was just, because you could say, like, Zack has a sense of, like, a lot of people say whether you like him or not, he does have a certain style that he brings into most of his films. And even watching Man of Steel, like, he doesn't have that same, like, visual flair that he has in some of his other movies, like maybe like 300 or Watchmen or Sucker Punch, or even like Snow Steam Iron. But
so
Man of
Steel, it's the Larry Fong style, right?
Yeah, exactly. And watching, Man of Steel, I'm like, wow, like, first of all, it was already a phenomenally shot film as it was, but, like, again, just there's so many layers to that movie, and he made it so much more than just another Superman origin story, because at that point, we had so many. One of my favorite bits in that movie is right in the beginning, when it jumps from Clark, just about to land in Smallville, and it cuts right to him on that ship in the ocean. I'm like, oh my god, like, he did the one thing that I was so worried about, is that we were gonna retread the entire Superman origin yet again. And at that point, I was like, even as someone who loves Superman, I'm like, okay, we don't need to see like another Smallville because we just had 10 years of that, and he didn't do that. And
even when I rewatch Man of Steel, that particular cut makes my heart just leap a little bit.
Me too.
Because I remember feeling that exact way. I remember feeling like, uh-oh, what's happening? Oh man, oh my god, we're flipping the fucking script. Like, that's exactly what happened.
I do remember being surprised. I was like, oh, they just skipped all of that. Okay, that's fine, you know. And when I look back at it now, it's actually really cool because it's again, as always with Zack, another example of showing and not telling. Telling us all about Clark, who he is and how he grew up and, you know, all this kind of stuff, and then constantly retreading it right up to adulthood is telling us everything about who Clark Kent is. And instead, he's like, and he's here. Okay, let's show you. This is Clark Kent. And we all go, you know.
It's such a strong transition, too. Yeah. It's just so, it's so forceful in the way that it's sort of like Zack just being like, yeah, I did that. Like, it's just like...
And it was a bold storytelling move on his part,
onto
too.
The screen. It was a real power move. It was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And I think like that's for me like what kind of sets Zack apart from other filmmakers. That like I feel like other filmmakers probably would have retreaded the origin in a somewhat of a linear fashion, where Zack immediately cuts to Clark being an adult, but we do see his origin story a bit through the flashbacks, but those are tied into what Clark is going through in parallel to what's going on in the present as well as the past.
Exactly.
So for me, like, and some people are saying, oh, that's a little jarring because like why not just tell a linear story? Well, maybe you don't have to tell a linear story if the story you're telling, you can parallel what's going on with Clark in the present day and kind of get context of why he's feeling the way he's feeling, because he was already through something similar like this when he was younger.
Exactly. And that's like, I don't know, the spoon-fed folks who want to be spoon-fed are really sold on being linear because it enables the spoon-feeding better. Yeah. And it frustrates me because that's not the only way to do a film. You know, it's not the only way to tell a story. And so when they're doing it this way, instead of just showing us in a linear fashion, this is exactly how Clark developed and why he's this way, instead they show us he's this way. Oh, look, now he's thinking about this or remembering this. This is why he's that way. You know, this is what he's thinking about in this particular point in time. This is what, like, you know, just seeing the bus coming down the street, and then he thinks about the bus, you know, and the whole incident that went down when he was a kid. You know, we are getting a glimpse into his mind, the way his mind works, his psyche, the way that he functions. That is showing and not telling, guys. They're giving us the character of Clark Kent. They're not just plastering it on the screen for us to lick off. You know, it's just, that was a weird image. Anyway, but like, it's true. This is showing and not telling. But you have to be engaged enough to go, oh, okay, I got to glean stuff from this, and I can't just sit back and wait for them to pour it on me. And I think it's beautiful, and it's a much better, I like the linear, or the non-linear approach in a lot of ways anyway, just because done well, it's really effective. But here, I had a much better sense of who Clark Kent was when I walked out of Man of Steel than I ever had got from my childhood seeing Superman movies. Like, no offense, but, you know, like, suddenly it was like, holy cow, this guy, oh, I like him. That was the first time I was ever emotionally invested in Clark Kent. First time I ever really cared about who he was or what he was all about. And it's because they gave me a glimpse into his soul through the film, instead of just having him go, you know, well, I look out for people and I help, or, you know, or just spelling it out for us so much that we go, yep, he's a Boy Scout. You know, no, oh, look, he's a caring person who's constantly trying to stay on the down low until people are in danger, and then he's like, off I go, you know, like, he can't help himself. And that got me invested way more than just spelling it out to me ever would have done.
I mean, if you want to be totally honest and you want to write a really honest article about why you don't like Zack Snyder, I think the only mistake that you can point out is that he has faith in his audience. Yeah. And that we're such a shit audience now that like 50% of us just slide right off of that amazing, like, you know, world building and storytelling, and just sort of like, you know, I mean, like, you gotta wonder, like, you know, I mean, how does this current audience receive things like Pulp Fiction, which make no goddamn sense the first time you go through it. And you really do have to be like, okay, wait, what's happening? You have to get kind of invested. I think that, this is my axe to grind, but it's why we're stagnating artistically, is because
absolutely,
the audience is used to a very lowered bar, and I've been worried about this since about 1997. About 1997, when I realized that we had a narrative happening in the X-Files that refused to lower the bar for the audience. Just doggedly refused to lower the bar at any point. And there were people who were meeting that bar, and then there were people who were like, this show is incomprehensible. Why aren't you explaining more to us? And I think that movement toward we need an explanation for everything is death.
Yes. Oh yes. It is artistic death, creative death, by far, definitely.
And I think that's, especially with looking at Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman, and even to maybe like a lesser extent Watchmen, I think that people walk into these movies, again, thinking, oh, they're superhero films, so I don't need to think too much, they're just going to be fun, right? And for a lot of people, even the people who don't necessarily hate Batman vs. Superman, they just didn't find it enjoyable for themselves, walk out saying like, oh, that was just kind of boring because I just kind of wanted to see a superhero movie. Well, I think that's a double-edged sword. We're like, yeah, I mean it is, and that's kind of, like, none of us were really. With Batman vs Superman, that was kind of a different story because we were excited for Batman and Superman fighting, of course, but when it became something more for those of us who enjoyed it, like we were like, oh yes, like we didn't know that was the story we wanted, so we loved that we got what we got, and then some people were like, oh, that wasn't what I wanted. I wanted something simpler. I wanted to just kind of turn off my brain and see two superheroes fighting.
And I'm mad about
humor culture.
Yeah. And that's the other level, though. Yep. It's like, it's not even that I didn't get what I wanted. It's that I didn't get what I wanted, and I'm mad about it.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why are you mad? Oh, I didn't get what I wanted. Is what I got interesting? Is what I got entertaining? Well, then maybe, take a minute to think maybe you actually enjoyed this experience more than you thought you did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. I remember, way back when, I was busy, and these days I still am, but, and I remember the 300 passing across my radar way back when, and I heard about it, and I heard about the stir it made, but I've never seen it still. I'm like Nick, I'll get around to it. Now I'm like, I really need to do this. But, and so it was like, oh, okay. And then Watchmen came around, and I'm pretty sure it was out on video, and my husband and I sat down and watched it. And I distinctly remember going, what in the crap? I was really impressed. And you're right, it stuck with you. It lingered. The visual images were just really striking, and we got done, and it was like, holy cow. And it was very affecting. And even now, my husband's like, that was really cool. Watchmen, that was really interesting. It really caught his attention, especially, which is odd because it's not what he usually dives into. And so it was like, okay, keep that guy on our radar. He's nifty. And then life happened, and years later, my stepdaughter turns to me and goes, I saw a weird movie. I'm like, okay, so what was it? I know, so you know where we're going. And she goes, oh, it's this movie about this girl, and she starts describing the plot and stuff like that, and she goes, and then it just changes, and then this, and then that, and then this, and I'm like, okay, so did you hate it? And she's like, no, I kind of like it. I feel like I want to watch it again because I didn't really get it the first time, but there's so much to it. I'm like, what is this movie called? She goes, Sucker Punch.
Yeah, we all know.
Oh, really? So yeah.
I'm sorry, the Sucker Punch movie. I'm still not over it.
It was so
I'm not
interesting.
over it.
It was and she is, very intelligent and awesome audience member when it comes to things and stuff like that. But she was just kind of bemused by it, and yet so interested, so fascinated that she had to tell me all about it. And I was like, huh. So I put that on the back burner. Keep an eye out for Sucker Punch. I still haven't seen it, you guys. I suck so hard.
Guys, we need to have a watch party.
Yeah, me either. Don't feel bad.
Watch party.
I still haven't seen it.
300 and Sucker Punch. Let's go.
Yeah,
After sometime.
And then,
Yeah.
then again, life gets busy, and I'm like, blah, 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 I'm into the Batman trilogy, I'm into the Dark Knight trilogy, I'm enjoying the crap out of it. Yeah, woo, woo, oh, Superman, okay. And my husband's like, well, we're sitting in Vegas, at a conference, and he's like, we should go see a movie tonight. Do you want to go see that new Superman one? I'm like, whatever, I guess. And then it was all, it's all over. And so that was the moment when I sold my soul to Zack, but it was like, oh my gosh, he actually made me give a crap about this character. I have never cared about that, guys. I have. And it's not that I hated him, it's just that I was pretty ambivalent. There were no strong feelings either way. It didn't really matter. He was Superman, it's all good. But, ooh, look, Batman is interesting. He's dark, and now it's just like, look at this pure, gentle, giant soul. How can you not love Clark Kent? What's wrong with you people? How dare you hurt my son, And so it's just, he sucked me in right there, and I don't know, I was kind of shocked by the blowback and everything, and it was like, okay, you know what, well, I still like it, and I'll go see Batman v Superman, and gosh, I hope it's good. Holy work of art. And I am sucked in. I'm totally sucked in, and it's fascinating as I go back and start to discover things about Zack, because I wasn't there right at the beginning and going forward, so I'm kind of having to go backward in time and pick things apart, that it's like, holy cow, look at the classic influence that is always in his work. Look at the art reference that is always there. Look at the layers of imagery. Look at the layers of symbolism and motif and everything. He is a fascinating artist in terms of his medium. He works with film. It's his canvas, it's his paint, he's making art, and it is just really, really cool. Even in Snow, Steam, Iron, we saw it's still there, and you get some nice classical statues in a couple different scenes, and I'm like, it's like, this is what he does, and he is really good at it, and it may not be for everyone, but it is really fascinating, and it always keeps me thinking and keeps me engaged, and gives me like 8 million different threads of thought to think on and follow through on. Okay, what about this layer of the film? What about this layer of the film? What about this layer of the film? There's always a new layer of the film to explore. I don't get that in anything else that I watch. And so it is just, it's an addictive drug.
Okay.
I am there.
That's a comparison.
Yeah. Okay, there's something that I need to, like, okay, all the people who want to criticize Zack Snyder, like, I think it's okay that they might, like, if they want to, disagree with some of the things he does, but I think, like, before that, they all just need to acknowledge first and foremost that this guy is a true artist. Like, whether or not you like what he does, you can't just dismiss what he does as, like, Michael Bay.
Like crap.
You have to acknowledge that.
Well, it's just crap. It's totally incomprehensible crap. No, it's not. You just don't get it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he puts in so much effort. Like, first and foremost, just admit that there is so much effort put into all these movies.
Honestly, if the criticism had like merit and weight and ideas behind it, and actually engaged with the subject matter, I would never be bothered by Snyder criticism. But the Snyder criticism is co-opting social justice stuff, which, like, they never use it correctly, and they never talk about what's actually wrong, and it makes me batty, because it's like you're undermining like what really matters to me. It's personal attacks, which are the most creepy and heinous part of it, and it's it's full dismissal. Like, it's just like the article that Collider just released about Snow, Steam, Iron, that just was like, well, it's a Snyder film, so obviously it's gonna have casual violence against women and fetishized violence against women, and I would immediately got on Twitter. And I was like, neither. You can't have those things at the same time. You can't say it has fetishized violence and it has casual violence, unless you think it's switching back and forth between the two at the same time, because you can't call the same image both of those things. Those are two entirely different categories of things. I haven't seen the film, and I'm still angry about this feedback because it doesn't make any freaking sense in the first place. Make some sense. At least engage it. Like, if you're gonna give a feminist critique of a film, you need to know what you're talking about in the first place. And this is the thing, is that people know that they don't have to know what they're talking about, because everybody will just jump on the bandwagon and be like, yeah, that sounds right, without even thinking about it.
Yes, especially a lot of the criticism, it's bandwagon criticism, where they glom onto that catchphrase and just repeat it ad infinitum. Like, because, well, that's why we discount it, is because it's grim, dark, and murderers. That they don't know how else to criticize it. So obviously, I don't think you're putting any real thought into this. You're just throwing emotion at it. That doesn't. I'm going to discount your criticism if you're doing that.
How can violence be casual and fetishizing? How can it? It can't have It's either you're thinking about it a lot or you're not thinking about it at all. You can't do both.
Okay, guys. As a student right now, as a student journalist, there was a comment that one of my friends made last time about one draft of an article that we read, and it sounds pretty much like this, which is just one of our juniors, and they want to sound smart and pretentious, like they know more than they actually do, and so what they do is that they lump two adjectives together, it makes me crazy. I don't know,
I'm an English teacher, you guys, so and
that's happening. That kind of mean the same thing, but they don't actually mean the same thing, and so they just lump it together and put a lot of adjectives into what they're saying and a lot of descriptors, just so that they sound like they know what they're talking about when they actually don't.
Which is adorable and really, really charming when it comes from a student who's learning. When it comes from a journalist whose voice is being boosted by a major publication, it makes me tear my hair out.
It's condescending and full of yourself.
It's so upsetting.
Are they supposed to be adults?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and this went through an editor who didn't say, "Hey, that makes no sense." Like 4 pairs of eyes at least looked at this article, and none of them thought, "Hey, that didn't make any, you can't make both of these criticisms of a 40-minute film. Is it 2 different films put together? Is one half of it casual and one half of it fetishizing? Because otherwise, I don't know what you're talking about."
I can't believe they said that. I need to find that person and beat them, because you missed the message of the entire freaking thing. This happens every single time. I'm so sick of this cycle. Okay, I'm done.
And I was ready too. I started hearing there's some misogyny in this movie, and I was like, okay, I'm ready to hear out everybody. And then I got, and all of the criticisms have been so limp and lifeless and pointless, and I've just been like, what? Why can't we have a real conversation about this thing I'm dying to have a conversation about? Why are you guys teasing me as if you're actually going to talk to me about this in a real way? It's like nerd. It's like being shut down as a nerd all over again. It's like, nope. We've thought too much about this. Everybody needs to be quiet now. And that person that needs to be quiet most is you.
We use too many brain cells in one go, guys. We need to take a break.
We need to slow down.
And that's why, honestly, I stopped taking Collider seriously a long time ago.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Ever since Batman vs Superman came out, they're. I'm not saying that all these publications and bloggers are paid off by Disney or Marvel, because that's stupid. But there is a real bias against Zack there. People viciously attack a guy who's making movies as if he's a Donald Trump or someone who's actually doing legitimately horrible things to people, and he's literally just making fucking movies. I don't excuse my language, but sometimes I don't understand why people feel the need to treat Zack the way they do. Again, I'm not saying you're not allowed to not like Zack Snyder. That's fine. You can have much like what you just said, Danielle. You can have real criticisms of the guy, and that's fine to have a real discussion. That's not my problem. My problem is people attacking Zack and us as his fans on a personal level just because you don't like his movies.
Yeah.
And that's
My
where,
favorite is this morning bumping into a post that says, our fandom is toxic. That's the favorite phrase they like to chuck out there for any fandom they don't like. We are toxic, you know.
You're the worst.
okay, well, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Jeff Snyder. He's a film blogger. And just
Oh my god.
Yeah, and just the other day on Twitter, he was talking about, and well, he blocked me on Twitter a long time ago, so I see a lot of the stuff vicariously through other people, and he just automatically blocks DCEU people on Twitter, like he just doesn't even care. So he went on.
I signed up for a block and he didn't deliver.
Aw, that punk.
Like
I'm
what?
gonna change my Twitter handle just so he'll block me.
No, but like, so he went on this thing the other day saying like, oh, does Zack Snyder really expect me to download a stupid app to see a shitty looking movie or something along those lines? And people were saying
Like a 14-year-old wrote it. It was
yeah,
amazing.
like he was acting like
Wow.
he was acting like an immature child. And then one of the girls that I follow on Twitter, kind of saying, well, maybe it's not made for you. And then he got all defensive. He was like, oh, so you're saying it's not made for Jews? And we're all just like,
Wow.
what? No one brought up the fact that you were
Wasn't made
Jewish.
for
What are
you.
you talking
Not
about?
much.
And he went on this whole thing, and then the girl ended up calling him out, and then he's like, and then he went to Twitter saying like, oh, I'm having her investigated. I might even get the FBI involved because I feel so attacked, and this is vicious behavior, and I'm tired of the death
my
threats.
gosh.
And no one was sending him death threats.
Like,
And this is a guy who, first of
Get a
all,
little bit
he
of
lost his
coin.
job
Oh
several
my
years
gosh.
ago. He lost his job several years ago because he went on Twitter and was saying he was suicidal just because a woman beat him to an article or beat him to
He's
a
lost.
stoop.
Oh my god.
He's lost 2 jobs, hasn't he? He's been fired from 2 different publications.
I'm not. I just know of the one instance. I'm not entirely sure, but him and there's another. Similar instance with Devin Faraci or with that one guy. Yeah. So
Mention that name
oh
here.
my gosh, that
Yeah.
name.
yeah, and then
Sorry,
he
go
and,
ahead.
no, and then like
Stars.
and that starts up controversy recently too because Alamo Drafthouse was saying, oh, we're gonna give him a second chance, and everyone on Twitter was pissed, myself included, and we're like, so you're basically saying it's okay to bring back a guy who sexually assaulted several women and
Yeah.
verbally
Yeah.
and physically, and you're just gonna let them
Yep.
back as if it's no issue because you believe in second chances. No, and then the next day
no.
they're like
there's such a thing as second chances, and there's such a thing as ignoring, what's already happened and pretending like it's not going to happen again.
yeah.
So
And
Yeah.
and the woman who
Johnny Depp.
and what sorry to interrupt. But one of the women who came out against Devin came out and said after the whole incident where she came out and said that he like inappropriately like grabbed her, that Alamo Drafthouse will be the people who were employing him at the time. They said, oh, he's no longer working with them, but I guess that up until like last week, he was still technically on their payroll.
She's pretty sure they lied. She's
Yeah.
pretty sure.
Yeah, you saw that, right? What she said in response to everything?
Yeah, I read all the Farasi stuff because it was just disgusting. And I think it's important to point out that the common denominator here between these 2 jackholes is misogyny.
Yep.
And that it's allowed to reign, and it's allowed to reign freely. And nobody cares. And he knew that nobody would care. What's his face? I don't even remember his name anymore. Snyder spelled wrong. Mr. Snyder spelled wrong. Definitely just saw a female commenter on the top and decided to engage in a campaign of harassment against her, and it was absolutely targeted because she was a female person telling him just giving her opinion and having the gall to give her opinion on his
having the
Twitter
gall to
feed.
challenge his opinion,
And he was saying
It
how
was
like
such
she was
an
like
innocuous comment. It was so civil. That's what was so upsetting, is that like I've followed her off and on.
Yeah,
and,
Jezebel,
you know,
yeah, same here,
sometimes
yeah.
she goes over a line that I'm not willing to cross, and I respect that, and that's fine. That's her style. But like, this wasn't even
crossing
her
that line.
crossing any lines. Like, this was the most innocuous comment she's probably made in her entire life, and it ended in this giant thing where basically he just decided to mobilize his people to harass her. And this is exactly what happens to female voices in any realm of,
Yeah,
of the comic book
like,
industry.
yeah, and the sad thing is that, like, all day yesterday she was
Rampant.
locked out of her Twitter because of him saying that she was saying all these horrible things about him. And
Yep.
she was only
There's no record of that. Is the thing. There's no record of that. I mean, I went and I looked, and she called him fat once, and I was like, that's not cool. But like, it's not a block. It's not like a
anti-Semitic kind of thing, or
about
like a
Americans.
death threat. Like he was
Yeah.
saying he was receiving
stuff
death
like
threats
that.
and all this stuff, and like, where are the receipts? Like, show us what you were talking about. And then he was getting all defensive. Like, oh, I was gonna block any DCEU person who retweeted her tweet, and I'm like, dude, how old are you? How pathetic are you?
Yeah.
Like, seriously,
Find
like,
that tweet and retweet it immediately. No, I think it's fascinating to me that stuff like this is just rampant, and they seem to be some of the loudest and most obnoxious voices against Zack. And so I just don't see how they are the same. You know what I mean?
Okay,
I have
question.
not seen anybody come out and say, Zack Snyder has done this to me or has done, you know what I mean? They all have the nicest things to say about him. This says a lot. Go ahead, Gene.
Okay. Question, guys. Question. Do all the male critics, fans hate Zack because he undermines their fake feminism?
Oh my god, that's a good point.
that is a good point.
Because someone like Zack Snyder is just showing everyone pretty much what a male feminist ally should look like. With look at Sucker Punch, look at Lois Lane in his movies, right?
Yep.
He's
Yep.
showing
and
everyone
isn't
what.
spending every single interview being like, well, because I'm a male feminist.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not boasting that he is one. Yeah.
And so look at Sucker Punch. As someone on Tumblr put it, Sucker Punch is spending $5 million. How many $1 million, right? Just to promote this movie, just to yell at nerds for 3 hours straight. Right? Yeah, and Zack Snyder pulls something like that for women. It's without a doubt, it's for women. It was not in any way for men. It's in service of the male geek culture, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And and people just go out of their way to hate a movie like that, just maybe because it just goes against what their definition of a proper boundaries for what male feminism can be. So that it doesn't obligate them to be more feminist than they already are, which is 0.
They can't feel good about themselves after watching a Zack Snyder film. That's mostly what it is. And I think it's absolutely about exposing their fake feminism. But I mean, I think that they have a certain self-image, and that self-image gets rocked when Snyder puts all their personality traits into his main villain, and then is like, well, that's Lex Luthor, deal with it. And they're like, no, we will not deal with it. We will be giant piss babies on the internet, and yeah.
We're gonna prove everyone's point, but at the same time, we're gonna use our privilege to pretend that it's not the case.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and especially you bring up Danielle, you bring up a really good point too in looking at Lex in Batman vs Superman compared to the fanboys, and that Lex's whole thing in Batman vs Superman, he's just angry at Superman simply for existing, and that's how these bloggers are with Zack. Seriously,
absolutely.
He can just make a fun short film with his friends and family on a weekend and have it not that be that big a deal. He just wants to have fun and do this little thing for his fans and for his family and whatever. And out of nowhere, he gets viciously attacked for people just saying, "Oh, here's another Zack Snyder piece of crap.
Nobody even noticed when Joss Whedon did this. Yeah. Nobody even noticed. It didn't even make a splash. You had to look for it. You had to go looking for it.
I didn't even know he even did one until you just told me right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just. Yeah, and that's why it's. I always feel so bad for Zack. Again, he's if he was actually out there saying and doing things that garnered hate, the hate he gets, okay, fine, whatever. But he's not doing.
At least he earned it, or at least it's true. I can see, where the reaction is coming from.
But there's no logistical reason or rhyme as to why people are saying the things that they're saying about Zack.
I mean, if they were writing articles over and over, like, Zack Snyder, please stop using slow-mo. Zack Snyder, please stop taking everything so seriously. Zack Snyder, please stop, like, raising the bar infinitely on this shit and just always going too extra. Like, if they were just sitting there saying that, I would just, like, read those, enjoy those, and giggle. Like, it would be super fun because it would be true. It would be, you know, like, if you don't like that in a film, cool. That's interesting. That's interesting feedback. But feedback, like, that doesn't... I mean, like, I basically made a comment on this Collider article saying, who is this for? Like, what is the purpose of this review? Like, who do you expect to read this and get something out of it? Because what I want to know is why you're writing it, because nobody's learning anything about the film. Nobody's learning anything about feminism from this article. No, if Zack Snyder picked it up, it would be freaking useless to him because it doesn't mean anything. You're basically saying Zack Snyder exists and I'm angry about it. Well, Zack can't do anything about that. So, like, what do you, like, what's the purpose? Like, you have to be transparent about that. Like, did you just, I mean, like, you're just firing off this article for nothing, and you have to admit at that point that it's clickbait. You have to admit it because you wrote an article that absolutely serves no purpose except to make people read it. That's terrible.
Yep. Yellow journalism.
Ugh.
Lois Lane would be ashamed.
I want to talk about his arc of growth too. Like, I want to talk about him as an author, as an artist too, because I think that if we get in this cycle, we could go for a really long time because there's a lot of journalism to address.
Fair enough.
Yeah. That would be a whole, like, days worth of podcast just going off about all that, yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. We could maybe get that out of our systems at some point. But, like, I want to talk about the difference between, like, the thing is, like, I know that a lot of us here haven't seen, like, 300 or Sucker Punch, but, like, it's so obvious that, like there's an evolution, and I think that's what's really beautiful, is being able to see that evolution, being able to see that, like, you know, I mean, like, I was incredibly let down by Tim Burton in the latest half of his career, because nothing changes. It's the same film over and over and over again. You can see Zack do better by women. You can see Zack do better by people of color. You can see Zack thinking about what he's going to do next and raising that bar for himself infinitely. And that, I mean, like, it's such a great example for a stagnating medium, for a medium that's become about commercialism and all that shit. It's so inspiring as an artist to see that and just to be like, no, you infinitely grow, especially at his age. Like, you know, I mean, like, I'm looking to the future and thinking, well, I could still be learning things when I'm his age. That's amazing to me. Like, I think that's a lot of what inspires the artists that work with him, all of the actors that he casts and the people that he works with are probably, like, I see that and I see, like, yeah, I would be really inspired if I was working with a man of his age who was still growing. He didn't say, like, oh, I'm done, I've reached this age, I'm at the pinnacle of what I can do. He just keeps raising the bar.
Or who keeps thinking that he's doing new and interesting territory and yet is still recycling pretty much the same thing. And you're right, if you look at his beginning, like even the 300, I haven't even seen that. And I'm very aware of the slow-mo montage type of, you know, style that was going on, you know, the really heightened everything. And that's still, to this day, a calling card that people want to bash on him for. But then you look at Batman v Superman, there was no slow motion in there. There was no slow motion in that.
Same thing in Man of Steel, too,
So you're telling me that he's got this one style that's always crap all the time? It's not. He has been constantly growing and changing and developing as an artist all this time, while we just, you know, reap the benefits, or at least I do, you know, the awesomeness that comes out from it, you know. But you are right. He is continually growing and changing and exploring new things, and I love that. If you are not continuing to do that, you are complacent, and complacency is the death of creativity. You know, it always has been. And so, you know, I agree. I love that he is constantly working and you know, and changing and trying new things, and he's always got a style about him. But that's That's just how he is, but he's still doing new and different things. And even Snow Steameyer is 4 minutes long, and yet it's very, very heightened in its style, because that's what this is. I'm going to try something new. I'm going to do a little, drabble, or I'm going to do a quick little watercolor or something as an artist. I'm going to do this little piece of work and see what happens if I do it this way. Mm-hmm. That's cool. That's good.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I respect so much, even when he fails, even when he's not, even the parts of the films that are not perfect, I'm like, that represents an attempt at something.
Yes, and that's important, because not everything is going to be a success straight out of the box. No artist worth their salt who's truly working and trying to expand their boundaries is ever going to be, just shoot and nail it every single time. It doesn't
unless you
happen.
do the same thing that you've always done over and over and over again.
Exactly.
Keep playing it safe.
Do it that way.
Yep, but if you're trying to grow, you will have some failures here and there, and that's okay. That's just what it does. And you learn from that and go, all right, so next time I'm going to do this, and see if that fixes some of this or shifts it a little bit, I don't know. I really, really, really love how he's just continually working and growing, and he seems to inspire that in the people. That's why they like working with him, because he is, I don't know, I think he's very kind, and very positive, but on top of that, he's constantly doing things, and they want to be a part of that. It gets really old and really boring in your profession when you suddenly get typecasted to a certain role or a certain area, and you just kind of show up and you're the drone that just does it. There's no more creativity. There's no more pushing forward. There's no more trying new boundaries. You're just doing the same thing over and over again. And that people get tired of that, even in a creative area like movies. Like the people that the musicians that show up and do the soundtracks, they aren't having an amazing creative time. It's already written. Their job is to show up, sit down, learn it, and play it. And that's what you do over and over and over again. The music changes, your role doesn't change. It can get quite boring after a while. And then Hans Zimmer is like, what if we take a 2-day workshop, get a whole bunch of drums together and just go nuts and see what happens? Okay. And that's what he did for Dark Knight Rises. And musicians were still talking about that after the movie had released, because that was the most fun, the most creativity, the most exciting time they'd had in their field in a long freaking time. And this is what Zack does, Let's make a 4-minute movie. Let's just tinker around and see what happens. Let's try some cool stuff. And everybody goes, yeah, let's do that. It's very exciting for creative people to be able to do that. And often when you're a creative person and get into a creative medium like film and stuff, over time you discover that you're not at liberty to be creative. You're just kind of the drone that shows up and does it. And so he's got to be a breath of fresh air. There's got to be people who are just killing to work with him, because he brings that, and that makes it far more enjoyable than just showing up and going through the motions.
My first introduction to Zack Snyder was also through Watchmen, and what I liked about this movie is that it was an adaptation of a comic book story, and what impressed me is that how almost perfectly he put this story into a movie form. So, some scenes were almost frame by frame repeating the comic book. He did there were some changes in the plot, but the main point of the entire story was put into this movie, because you can't put the entire comic book into a movie word by word, just like you can adapt a book into a movie without throwing out some stuff. And 300 was also pretty much a perfect adaptation of a comic book story. And so when Man of Steel was announced and Zack Snyder was announced as the director, my initial thought was that is this going to be an adaptation of a certain Superman story that was in comic books? And when the first teaser trailers started to appear with Jor-El and Jonathan Kent narrations, I realized that we are going to have a brand new Superman story that we haven't seen before, and that was an amazing feeling, because Superman Returns was pretty much they were trying to repeat what was done way back in the past, and this is one of the main reasons why people hate Zack Snyder, because he ruined their childhood, as they say. But why are you so stuck in the past, and why can you allow new things to exist? And this brand new, fresh look on Superman and his origin, his entire character was just so. It blew my mind. Me and my friend, we spent more than 2 hours just discussing this movie after we saw it for the first time at the cinema. It's just, it was so undescribable. There were only emotions. And as you said, that first scene with grown-up Clark, it was pretty much the entire movie. In that one scene, we see a wandering Clark Kent who is still on the path of finding himself as Superman in the future. And you see him watching over humanity, like how they're doing good stuff, like the guy who saved him when this cage was falling down on Clark. And
Thank you. I wanted to mention that. Good job.
He smiled at him and I felt like he was inspired by this act in this instant. And the very next moment, we see how he saves the people. And I can't understand how people say that Man of Steel is not a Superman story when the very first scene with Clark Kent is him saving people, which is and without expecting anything in return. And it's just pretty much what Superman is all about. He does good stuff and without expecting anything in return. All he needs is for people to be safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Agreed. And I really agree. It's like, he can't ruin your childhood because your childhood is still there. If you walk out and go, I don't like it, it doesn't concur with my childhood view, and the thing I loved in my childhood, you can go home and watch it. They have DVDs. It's everywhere. You can find it. And you go home, you sit down, you put it in, you go, my childhood, and enjoy the heck right out of it. Go ahead. It didn't ruin anything, and it does frustrate me. Why can't you have new things? What? Why must it not be allowed to exist? Because it makes you uncomfortable. That's odd to me. It really is. And just take note. Okay, I don't really enjoy Zack's movies.
There's something toxic about that nostalgia. I don't necessarily think that all of those media, those pieces of media that people say that about, were definitely things that were really problematic in origin, but there's something toxic about holding so tightly to that and not feeling like something new needs to take its place, because we need to learn and grow as people. And I think that a lot of time that nostalgia just translates to, you invited other people to the party and this isn't just mine anymore, and that's really frustrating. That's really frustrating, and it's disheartening because it says something really shitty about our community,
doesn't it? Yes, it does.
Why, and this isn't necessarily the DCEU related, but I think it's that nostalgia that kind of resulted in the kind of space that we are in the terms of the Star Wars films, and that they're going. I mean, I've enjoyed the most recent Star Wars films
nowadays.
Yeah. So but I think that's just how we are nowadays. At all, we're always so nostalgic. We all just relive our past. But I mean, again, I've enjoyed The Force Awakens and Rogue One and stuff. But even though I didn't necessarily love the prequels,
new stuff already.
I do like that in the Star Wars prequels, they were still pushing for something a little different than just being they could have just looked and been exactly the same as the old movies, but George Lucas,
they could have made the same exact casting decisions, but I mean, at least at that level, we did something slightly different.
Yeah, and I have problems with the prequels, but at least with those, George Lucas was trying for something at least a little different, whereas now Disney's looking at it everyone loved the originals, and we're really not, and the prequels didn't happen more or less. We're just
gonna pretend the prequels don't exist.
See, I actually like the prequels, and I will say, it frustrates me that that people are like, ooh, I don't like the prequels. They're too dark and weird, and they're not like the original trilogy I loved. And now we're just recreating the original trilogy everybody loved, and it's like, this is Anakin's fall from grace, man.
Yeah,
you expected that to be like the trilogy? Who's gonna end up in victory at the end of this story? We all know where this is going.
Darth Vader's
this is
story
not
is
a happy
extremely
time,
uplifting.
okay?
I don't know what you're talking about. Darth Vader's story is extraordinarily uplifting. I'm inspired by his genocide every single time.
It's a different story. It's a different story. It is, but in no way supposed to be exactly like the trilogy. And people frustrated me again with their expectations going in expecting it to be like that. It's not. This is a different era. And so it's much different. My husband prefers the sequels, and he grew up on the original trilogy and adores it. He loves the sequels because it is Anakin's story, and he likes to watch it, and he loves to then continue and watch the next trilogy and watch him be redeemed by his children. That is the full Star Wars story, and you don't really get,
experience.
you know, everybody likes the last half because it's upbeat and happy, but you know what, the first half, the second one doesn't matter as much if you don't get that first part.
Yep.
You know, we're failed, and he's so close, and we're like, dude, come on, man, you can do, oh, you blew it, you totally blew it, oh my gosh, you know, it's hard to watch.
As far as the prequels go, the last one is my favorite.
Same
and
here.
It's by far the most dark and terrible. But it's absolutely like,
So
I mean,
beautiful.
like if you want me to make an objective statement, I think it's the best film in the bunch.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's pretty bold.
Yes.
Yep.
But
Anyway,
and I'm not here to say like,
I will
oh, you're
get off
wrong or
the
anything like
trilogies,
that.
you know, but it is very much a please don't just remake the same thing over and over again. We don't need that. And Zack doesn't tend to do that. And I'm delighted with Batman v Superman. I'm delighted with Man of Steel. And I admit he did this small little article after he released Snow Steam Iron, and they were like, what are you going to do next? And he's like, oh, I have these 2 projects I want to do. None of them are DC properties. And I'm like,
I know.
I mean,
that's where, like,
it's fine.
But at the
You
same
go
time,
ahead.
like,
Be you, Zack, do your thing. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Grow and fly away free, but I'm going to cry now, you know.
I feel the same way. Like, like as fans, like, I think we're all a little selfish. Like, we want, well, us fans of him anyway, we want him to stick around because, like, we love what he's been able to do with the DCEU, and for a lot of us, he's the reason why we're this emotionally involved in the first place. And
my petty self is very excited about the day that he comes back to the DCEU, and everyone is so angry.
Oh god,
how do you feel about
that anger is gonna feel so good.
That's why, like, a part of.
How do you feel?
That's why, like,
whatever he does, I'm gonna watch it.
I know, same.
Hey guys,
I'm now sold on his stuff, so I'll watch it whether it's DC or not. But I will say he's the reason why I'm in this universe and why I love it so much. And so I really, in the end, though, I just want the man to be happy. So it's like, you know what? If that's what it takes. You go and do your thing and be happy, man. Just be happy. It's okay. Be happy and you know, spite all of those wank haters out there who feel the need to rag on you for just being you and for just putting stuff out there, you know, and for refusing to compromise because they demand it. You know, just go be happy. It's good. I love you. And, you know, but I will say, if Justice League is not his movie, I'm gonna kill somebody, you know, like I'm all the damn rumors are starting to circulate and I'm starting to panic and I'm like, no. But then I talk myself down. It's just a constant
you gotta tune it out. You gotta tune it out.
I do. I tune it out and I talk myself down, but it's a roller coaster and I'm like, oh, you know, and he's like, you know, they're like, have you had much input? And he's like, no, not really. I just kind of turned it over to them and it wouldn't be fair for me to come in and just start messing around and, you know, and I'm like, that's fair. But it's still your film, dude.
Like,
so it just dang well better be his, or I'm going to be really angry. I want my trilogy, and then I will let him go and let him be free. You know.
That headline is so false. He was definitely working on it. Like, it doesn't make any sense for him to even say that.
That freaked me out. It wasn't even the headline. It was him saying that. That would be wrong for me to go in there and start telling them how to do it after I've turned it over to them. I'm paraphrasing, but it was very similar to that. And it was
that's
like,
a mess.
But it's still your film, honey. You still filmed it, honey. You know, so it's
Reminder, Zack says some stupid shit before movies come out. I'm sorry, he does. Like, and I super love him, and I think that he would. I think he would agree with me. Like, I think that he would sit and think on that, and he would realize sometimes I say some stupid shit before.
We all do. We all do.
Sometimes I do. I mean, but he scared the shit out of me before Batman versus Superman, over and over. And the things he was saying were not in line with the film he produced. Not in line with the film he released.
I wasn't paying attention to any of those, so it's
Like, especially
Yeah, me either.
Yeah, especially when he was talking about how how much like the Dark Knight Returns influenced Batman vs Superman.
Oh yeah, and
like-
I was like,
No,
stop,
it's so funny.
stop,
I feel
you're
like the way
breaking
he
my
influenced
heart.
it is that he looked at it and went, "Wow, that's interesting." But I don't particularly agree with that view of Superman, so let's make it this way.
He was talking about like meeting with Frank Miller, and I'm just like, I have the evidence of my
Okay, I'm glad I missed
nervous
that, 'cause you're right. I'd have
because
freaked
if you
out over
read
that.
back on my blog, it's just
Okay.
panic during that area. It's just me
okay.
being like, this is why this can never happen. We need to talk to Zack Snyder.
Okay, I feel better because I was like, I love you, but it's still your film, and if they get Justice League that's not Zack's film, I'm gonna be really ticked because I kind of, as a selfish person, I really planned my Superman trilogy the way he was going to do it. You know, I'm like, I don't want it altered at the last gasp in the last movement, please. You know, so just give it to me, and I will be happy and let you do whatever film you feel you need to do. You know, fly free. Sweet.
Wait, guys. I'm not sure if you guys have talked about this, but how do you feel about the Man of Steel 2 news director?
Oh, about
I don't
Matthew
know.
Vaughn.
I didn't know who he was.
Okay.
After I found out, I went, "Oh, really? Please
Matthew
no."
Vaughn gave us his pitch, and it was definitely a swing and a miss.
Yeah.
I heard it, and I was like, Warner Brothers was like, who is this basic dude? Get him out of our office. Like, he said it, and they were like, no. Like,
Bye.
I feel like they just sat down and they said, did you see Superman Returns?
I know.
Because we've already done that.
We've been
We
here.
tried it didn't
We've
work.
done this.
So you're
not
gonna
to
need to
mention-
bring
Like-
something fresher.
We
Yeah.
just didn't take all the slits and arrows of the entire freaking universe freaking out over us happening to treat Superman like a person for 2 movies just to turn around and go right back to the old golden classic, okay?
No,
You
and,
know?
and like there's a lot of people
They
who
don't make all the stuff they just went through worthless, absolutely worthless. So,
and that's why like when I don't hate Matthew Vaughn as a director. I liked mostly what he did with X-Men First Class. Like one of my biggest problems with that movie was the fact you have a guy in Darwin whose ability is literally to survive anything and to kill him.
Yep.
Yeah, you just kill him like the first person to die.
You know, like of course,
come-
like the
come
first
on,
of the
come
team to
on.
die is like really. And even the actor was like, "Oh, yeah, I wouldn't mind coming back," and then they never brought him back, and you easily could have. Like his ability is to adapt to survive. His body should have been able to do that. Like, I know you're doing that for emotional value, but you could have done it with someone who maybe wasn't the only black person on the team. You know.
See, again, that feels like emotional manipulation. We're doing it for the angst, and it's like, you know, you got to really decide whether you want to kill somebody off for that kind of shock value, because in the end, often it doesn't serve you well. So, yeah.
And again, but like, so like other than that, like I thought his X-Men First Class was fine. I don't think he's a good fit for Superman at all, in any way, shape, or form. He, and especially because the comics he's made, he like a lot of people.
That comment, I'm like, you're out. You are out of my books.
And especially
I don't
because
know
like
who you are. I don't like you.
Okay, because my whole problem is like, okay, we have like 10 years of Smallville, which is great, and a lot of that ties into what the Reed films established. It's the same, like, it's a very similar universe. And like, and I love Smallville. Don't get me wrong, but I think Smallville was kind of like, to me, at least in my eyes, the book closing on the Reeve era of Superman. Because by the time Smallville was over, the New 52 was starting, and we got a slightly different version of Superman in the New 52, which definitely wasn't the Reeve Superman at all.
Yeah.
And for me, like, I can look back and I'm like, I can look fondly on the first on Superman's 1 and the Donner cut of Superman 2. I can remember those fondly. I love Smallville. I was a fan of those. I have to say, for myself personally, I want that era to stay over. That's why I had such a problem with the way that they introduced Tyler Hoechlin, Superman, and Supergirl, because you're just going back to the same damn thing.
I love that reaction.
And it's like, we made so many steps forward, and you're just taking steps back. And especially because if you look at Supergirl Season 1, you see some nods to the Christopher Reeve era. A lot of Supergirl's journey and visuals as well parallels Man of Steel in a lot of ways. So they're taking...
There's a lot of stuff, but it's corrective. Like a lot
There
of
was
that
even
stuff.
a scene where she came in and plowed the guy on the floor while punching him. The only thing missing was the cornfield. I was severely impressed, I gotta say. And then they were like, never mind, and took all that away. And it was like, oh.
Oh man, oh gosh, I'm so scarred by Supergirl. Like, I spent like 1 whole year when the first season was airing just defending it to all my friends and going, guys, it's gonna get better. Like, they're setting up all this stuff, all these parallels, it's gonna work. And then they switched over to CW and it was just all gone. It's gone.
Yeah.
It's gone.
They took it all
And especially,
it.
my biggest, I don't mean to make this a thing while complaining about Supergirl, but my biggest complaint about season 2 was the fact that the season 1 ends with her and James getting together. That's great, awesome,
Yes!
and I love, and this
It's like, oh man, I will be the first to admit that I was not the biggest fan of Kara and James. Okay, like I just felt
Neither
like
was
they
I. I'll
didn't
admit
have
that
the
too.
strongest chemistry on the show or something. But like the fact that they just dropped the entire ship like a hot potato for no
That was
reason.
amazing.
Yeah.
It was like,
Like,
oh,
it
good
was
grief,
just like,
we don't want
whoa.
this.
No, I
Chucky.
said
Okay,
we don't
and
have
my-
feelings
and
anymore,
my biggest-
I really
yeah.
just never talk about it ever again.
Man, I know.
It was
And
so
my
baffling.
and my biggest problem with that is the fact that, okay, they race bent Jimmy Olsen in this show, so obviously he's played by an African American actor. They do one of the most racist fucking things they could have ever done, and they get rid of James as a love interest, and they introduce a fucking slave owner, and that's the one that she's with the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Like him. He
Oh,
wrote
oh,
wrong.
not-
He's a dude
not to
bro.
mention,
Every
not to
time.
mention the race bending in the casting of Maggie.
Yeah.
Like Maggie's supposed to be
Have-
Latina, but she's played by a white actress.
Yeah, an Italian
Yeah, that
actress. Yeah.
annoyed me too. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know
All
what's
right,
funny?
so, sorry, go ahead.
You know what's funny about the Donner era is that people pretend like nothing prior to Superman movie, nothing was ever released prior to this.
Yeah.
The movie was released in 1978, and before this, the humanity.
There was so much of Superman before that
for-
already. Yeah.
40 years of comic books, and there were some TV shows, black and white TV shows, a radio show about with Clark Kent and Lois Lane.
And you had the Super Friends too.
Yeah, but for some reason everyone remembers only the Donners movie, and Superman begins only then for them. Like, why?
Yeah, like it doesn't make sense. Like if they want to be a purist, like be a real purist. Come on.
I was going to say, I try hard not to get caught up in that simply because I admit fully that I've read very few comic books in my life, and most of what I know is through the movies. So, like, Dark Knight Trilogy, I was like, awesome, Batman, and then people were like, that's really not comic Batman. I'm like, really? It's not? Oh, interesting. Didn't know that, because all I knew was what they're feeding me, and I wasn't reading comics. So, but yeah, you have to work really hard not to get caught up in the purest thing if you really don't know the source material. There's a lot of comics out there, man. You gotta make sure you know what you're talking about, and so I tend to shut my mouth if I don't know.
Just-
Man, you never know what you're talking about when it comes to comics. It's like a black hole.
It makes me wonder, were the people who, after watching first Superman movie, feeling like their childhoods were ruined because they were raised
Absolutely.
on older comics, older TV shows?
Yeah, and just
It means that they're not able to just stay in their tiny little window of childhood and stay in their happy little bubble and keep living it. But you're a grown up now, and it's okay to grow up, and it's okay to go back to your childhood and love it. You don't have to demand that everything served in front of you be exactly the same.
and here's the sad thing, and unfortunately, it's hard to say what Christopher Reeve would have said because he's no longer with us, unfortunately. But even like one of his sons, after Man of Steel came out and said, "Hey, I think my dad would have really liked this movie." And
Thank
I think,
you.
And
Christopher
I
Reeve
think
was
the thing
a gentleman. He never would have bashed that.
Yeah, and especially-
he said, "Oh, I think it's fine." He would have because
Yeah.
he was a lovely person.
and he was more. He was Superman on and off screen. Like he really was.
Yep.
Especially with
He
everything that
was
happened with the
just
accident.
such
He was-
a lovely gentleman.
he
He
was.
never would have
He
come
was-
out and bashed
Yeah,
Henry's
and-
version. In
and-
fact, he probably would have called Henry and been, that was really cool. He just wouldn't have. And Henry, being Henry, would have been like, thanks, man. They would have been so sweet to each other. It would have been
Only
sickening.
real life
I'm kind of
Superman,
sad I
you
didn't
know.
get a chance to see this,
I know.
So, yeah.
And the sad thing too is that like if fans don't want to admit this, I think Christopher Reeve would be the first to admit, hey, my time of Superman is over. Here's the new Superman, and that's fine.
Yeah.
'Cause-
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
He was-
I mean, he pretty much did that with Smallville. He even guest starred in season 4, I guess, and it was pretty much him giving the mantle of Superman to Tom Welling on that show.
Yep. And that's okay. He was excellent.
Yeah,
So,
and that's what,
okay.
and especially like, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, Katie.
Nah, go.
Okay.
I'm trying to change the topic, so keep going if you
No,
want.
yeah, and that's where like, and despite what people say, Zack does he respects what Donner and Christopher Reeve were able to do with those movies. Like, and there's a lot of nods in Man of Steel to the Christopher Reeve era universe, and even to Smallville, and like all these different interpretations. And people seem to think that just because they don't like Zack's movie, that he completely ignores what they loved about Superman. When if you look at those movies, Zack's completely respectful of the source material and of the prior movies and stuff. Like he went like the lengths to which Zack made those nods and was so respectful of those prior incarnations. One of the coolest things he did was when he was costume testing, he had Henry try on Reeve's Superman suit.
Yeah.
The actual original suit, right?
Yeah, and
They tried to get him to wear it.
Yep.
And like,
yep.
They could have had
That
him
was
try
one of
on
the
like
best stories of the whole thing, They had all the finalists come in and put that sucker on, put on the suit, on the suit,
Yeah.
Let's see how you look in it. So.
Yeah. All right, so I just saw Danielle's message. Unfortunately, she has to go because she has to go to class. I just want to say thanks, Danielle, for joining us. You're all super insightful and intelligent as always. Thank you for joining us. It was lovely
awesome,
having you here.
Danielle.
Thank you,
You're awesome.
Danielle.
Yeah.
Bye. I hope you enjoy your class. All right. But yeah, so like, that's why I hate when people say that Zack doesn't get Superman, doesn't like, he just disrespects everything that come before. If you truly think that first of all, like in many instances, you aren't paying attention to his film at all. Like
Yep.
like Zack is a huge fan of those movies, and the fact that like he's worked with Jeff Johns, and Jeff Johns is someone also he worked under Richard Donner for years. That's how he got into the business, and like you have these people who are working on these films who they aren't just ignoring the re-films, but and it just that's why it's so frustrating because like if you look at we've talked about this in the past, Superman Returns didn't work for the studio. It didn't. I enjoyed the movie fine. I don't love it by any means, but I could watch it on TV or whatever and be like, okay, it's fine. Like I don't hate it or anything. But for the studio, it was a letdown for them financially and critically. Like it got okay reviews. Financially, it didn't do the money that they thought it would have, and that's what that movie because of its failure. At least in the studio side, is what made them drive them to make Man of Steel, a completely different reboot that was not tied to the Reeve movies. And despite what people seem to think, that
it did very well.
Yeah, Man of Steel did really well for the studio. It made almost twice as much money as Superman Returns did. Like if you look at like Box Office Mojo or whatever, like Man of Steel made like double the money Superman Returns made, and that was a reboot. And for despite how many people say they hated the movie still made a lot of money for a rebooted Superman movie. And people keep saying, "Oh well, we just want the Reeve Superman back." Well, you had your chance to support that movie and you didn't. So don't complain when you're getting something you don't want because you didn't support the thing you wanted when you got it. Or if you didn't like that thing, because that's why I can't take fanboys seriously because they're hypocrites. Like
it just makes them sound like spoiled babies.
They
They're not really
do.
happy with whatever they're given, and
like
it's kind of embarrassing, guys.
Be happy.
You know, for me, Zack Snyder pretty much saved Superman because at the time I felt abandoned. You know, as you pointed out, Smallville ended. And then DC did this horrible thing. They rebooted their entire universe, and they pretty much screwed over everything that was in Superman's mythology. They killed both of his parents.
Again,
they made him and Lois work in different papers. They were enemies in that area of journalism. They weren't working together anymore, and I felt like Superman. I felt like Superman was gone, and even though Man of Steel might also be considered as a reboot, like New 52, but unlike New 52, Man of Steel has so much classic elements to this character.
It does.
It's just it was grounded, but the core elements of the character are still there, and it was
Yep.
a much more true version of Superman at
Yep.
that time for me.
Yeah, and that's why for me when
Yep.
people say that like Henry Superman is a comic book accurate, I see a lot of mixtures of Superman Birthright. I see a lot of Superman Man of Steel, which was John Byrne's reboot when they essentially got rid of everything before. I think it was like in the midst of like the Infinite or Crisis on Infinite Earths when they were kind of rebooting everything. It was after they rebooted Superman that you kind of got like the Superman was back to being like the last son of Krypton. Like there was no Supergirl at the time. There was no Krypto the super like all these other Kryptonian characters were gone, erased, and it was just Clark. And a lot of that you can see is that's where Man of Steel took influence from. And maybe I necessarily love that because I love the world building of Krypton and all that stuff. But at least you can see some of that adapted in Man of Steel. And I think Man of Steel to me is the quintessential Superman origin story now to me. Like, again, I appreciate what the Donner films did and what Smallville did. And those are all great. But to me, one of the reasons why I resonate so much with Zack's films so much is that, like, again, we've talked about this pretty much every week, is that we can relate to Superman in this version now. Like, he's no longer, like, the too perfect, too good for the world. I mean, he is still too good for the world. But, you know,
He
like...
is but he's not perfect. He is a person. A real, full, rounded person with thoughts and feelings and flaws and you know, beautiful attributes. So, yeah.
Yeah, and people... And that's why it's, like... Zack was able to do that so beautifully, and I don't think a lot of other filmmakers would have handled that as well, because I think a lot of people would have made Superman a lot more how he was in the past. Like, they wouldn't have given him the layers that he has, and Zack, again, was able to do that so well, and it's amazing, because for me, like, I've been a Superman fan for at least a good, like, 12 years of my life, and in that time, I've seen so many different iterations of Superman, and my favorite by far has been Henry's, because I can relate with him on a personal level. He's not perfect, and the people who think that Superman has to be perfect are the same people who complain that Superman is too perfect in the comics. You know?
Yep.
And it's so, like, again, those people are hypocrites, and I can't take their opinion seriously. So for me, like, I don't want a Superman that's perfect. I mean, that's okay, it's fine, but his stories are more interesting, more relatable, and more real at the end of the day when you give him layers and flaws and imperfections that we as people all have. Like, no one is immune to imperfection and flaws. You know, like, no single person is perfect. Ever, you know? And
besides,
go ahead.
Inside of DCEU, Henry Cavill's Superman can be pretty much considered perfect, because since it takes a real world perspective, pretty much any other person who would have his superpowers would use it for selfish gains.
Yeah, exactly.
Where he
doesn't.
uses it to do good.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's true.
That's why I just...
Well...
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
No. Never mind. It's okay.
No, and that's just... I'm always going to appreciate what Zack was able to do with Superman, because he made him real to me again. And especially for me, because I was still at a point where, like, I was still kind of in a... Not like a serious depression, but I was, like, in a bit of a rut after Smallville, and because, like my favorite character was no longer in media at the time. I mean, there was the comics, but like that was still like a different Superman. That wasn't the Superman that I necessarily wanted to read. I mean, I'm glad that DC took that chance with the New 52, at least to give a different taste of what Superman could be. But Zack was what brought Superman back into my life in a big way, and I'm always gonna appreciate that. And he was able to, and the fact that, like, for me, like, as someone who struggled with, like, mental illness for a while after the loss of my own mom when I was younger, like, he made someone really relatable, and I'm not the only one. There's so many people, like, and people of color as well, and women, like, so many, like, non-generic white fanboys can relate to, and that's amazing that he was able to do that. Like, and again, I keep saying this, but not very many filmmakers would have been able to do that and execute it the way that Zack did, and made it so relatable to so many different people. And
not many would have really thought it was worth the effort. You know, I don't think. You know, it takes a lot of work. You know, I don't think they would have tried that hard.
And that's like looking at Zack, and that's why I always feel so bad for the guy. Like, he can't even make a short film without getting criticized and personally attacked. And
it is the bandwagon to do now.
It is.
You know.
And now,
here's our flogging post. We better get busy. There he is again. He's popped up.
And people ask why we constantly defend his movies. That's why. Because
that's exactly why.
Whether you like his movies or not, there's absolutely no reason to attack him the way people do. There's no reason or rhyme for it. If you're one of those people who attack him, I'll be honest, you're a shitty fucking person. Like, I don't care what your rhyme or reasoning is. What has he ever done to justify you treating him so horribly?
Yeah, we have bona fide, child predators and bad people in the industry still making stuff. And you're totally okay with them because they might be talented. You're willing to excuse that. But if you don't like something that somebody's doing, and yet they have none of this other stuff that is truly reprehensible on their record, even in hearsay, yet somehow he deserves this kind of abuse. That's weird. That's backwards. And that's I don't accept that. No. So, yeah.
So, when the news of his personal tragedy came out, there were some people on the internet who were actually joking about this, making jokes about his tragedy.
That pissed me off.
I was never so disappointed in humanity like on that day. It was just horrible. Like,
you have got to have some empathy. Our society has a huge lack of empathy now, and it's very disturbing.
Yeah. No, I think the worst thing, if there has to be a worst thing, the worst thing about being a Zack Snyder fan is every time a new piece of news comes out, before I let myself feel excited, I first have to steel my heart and heave a big sigh in anticipation of what drama is going to come out of this next. Even if it's good news, even if it's something wonderful, he drops an Aquaman clip and then you're just going, oh my god, this is great, but also, okay, what are the awful fanboys going to see next?
Yeah.
That sucks. And you're so sweet because honestly, I'm like, to heck with everybody, man. I'm going to sit with my head in the sand and go, I love this stuff. And if I run into your negativity, you're blocked. So.
And that's why it sucks because there's I think we brought it up before, but there's the one guy who's been circulating on Tumblr lately, who's in the tags of Zack Snyder positivity and the DCEU positivity, he's literally making fun of the fact that his daughter killed herself just to be funny and to attack us.
He is a troll. He's been blocked so long, I didn't even know he was doing that because it was I blocked you eons ago when you were a
same
punk
here.
on
And
somebody else's
when I
post.
saw people posting about him, I'm like, who is this guy? Why have I never seen him? And I can't even remember how long ago I blocked him because I go to his thing and it already says blocked. I'm like, oh well, he must have done something immediately that made me mad.
Exactly. Honestly, I'll go through the posts and I love lots of DC positivity posts, and if I go in and there's somebody who is obviously a hater and just felt like they had to comment and be a wank on somebody else's post to drag down the positivity and or just be a punk butt and crap on other people's parades, then they end up getting blocked for me because it's you know what? I don't have time for this silliness, and I don't have time to deal with you later when you want to come on my post and be a punk too, just because, you happen to see it. So you don't get to see it. Bye-bye. And yeah, I curate a lot. And so, but it's a good thing because I'd rather keep that kind of negativity out and just sit in my happy bubble and go, man, I freaking love this stuff. Mm-hmm. So
and that's why it's so awesome to if any of you are on Vero at all, it's such an awesome place to be, especially if you ever look at Zack's posts.
It's a lovely place.
It's if you just scroll through his comments, it's all positive comments and loving comments, just supporting the guy.
I'm glad he had that.
Me too. And that is why half the people are there. And I gotta say, Vera was started by somebody who wanted to start a different social media, and then apparently he and Zack were friends. So Zack I swear, he's lending his name to it to get it better known so that, he can help a friend. And Clay, is the photographer for Zack's movies. It's the same way. He's like, cool, so they just start coming on. Recently, the little gal who plays Ferris.
Christine Wren.
Thank you. Yeah, just signed on, and Samantha Jo popped on, and I followed her, and it was like, woo, but it's, in the end, I swear, it's just Zack going, look at me. I have privilege. I am well known. I believe in this social media program. This is cool. I'll stamp my name on that and give support and try to draw people. And half of us are only there because he's there.
Yeah.
But it's a really nice, positive place, and I'm so glad he has that. And it has been just delightful to, see what they're up to and know what they're doing. And hey, look, a short film, and I mean, it's really, really cool. So, but if you're a hater, don't go there. Do not go and taint that area. We don't need that. If you're into Vero and wanna support it, then go ahead. But don't go there just to be a punk.
Yeah, and especially like just find better things to do with your time. Seriously, go outside, enjoy, take a walk, enjoy the fresh air. Yeah,
and go do it. You don't have to drag everybody else down with you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Okay, I know some of you have not seen Snow, Steam, Iron, but please watch it just for the sake of it's straight up Zack awesomeness. There's no dialogue. It is all imagery, which he excels at. And I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, but I will say it's 4 minutes of wow, and you get done and go, holy crap. And I don't know, to me, it was a cool story. It was a classic Zack story of women who end up, abused or taken advantage of, who defend and help themselves, who are strong. So you know what? If you don't like it, don't go watch it. But it's straight up Zack, and it was really, I don't know. I thought it was great. Some of the stylistic choices were really, really cool. And somebody asked for clarification because we're all geeks on the comments of it on Vero. And there's several specific shots of a woman holding like a severed head. And he's like, "Who is that? Is that Judith and so and so?" I know it's from the the artwork and stuff like that of the famous historical figure. And Zack came on and clarified. He goes, "No, that's John the Baptist and Salome." And it was like, oh, so like just to help with your interpretation whenever you see it, that's John the Baptist's head and the woman who danced, in order to captivate the guy and get his head basically. So yeah. Just it lends a lot of interesting insight into the whole story when you go to watch it, and it's not told in a linear way. And honestly, I'm starting to support that more and more. So especially go see it just for the fun of it. Yeah. It's Zack, and he's cool. And
it's a nice little watch. You feel like I didn't even know until after the fact that it was shot on an iPhone. Because it looks like something Zack would have shot, like as a full feature.
Yeah, looks like good film. So, yep.
And I wouldn't even be surprised if one day he ends up actually adapting that into a full feature film. Like I honestly
wouldn't surprise
Sign me up.
I know, and I am at that point. It's like directed by Zack Snyder. Well, all right then. I guess I'm seeing that. So.
Yeah, needless to say, no matter what, I'm going to support what he does because I love what he's been able to do so far from what I've seen from him. There's still a number of his films I really want to see. Well, actually, oddly enough, this might sound a little odd. The one film of his I really want to see is the Owl movie, The Legend of the Guardians.
Oh my gosh, me too!
I forgot I've seen that one. I have seen that one.
How is that one, by the way?
I've seen that one.
Loved that one.
Beautiful.
I
love
really
it. Awesome. Yeah, guys, we need to have a serious watch party for
God,
maybe.
I know. We need to take a day to
I don't know when. For like just all his movies because they're just so magical, all of them.
It's just
so many.
I know because it just sucks because we're all so busy lately, and we all still need to get to that Wonder Woman commentary too.
Yeah, I was gonna say that needs to be first up, but then after that, yes, we totally need to do stuff.
Yeah, and especially because I just won a free digital copy of Wonder Woman, so
excellent, well done.
Yeah, it's funny because actually it was I think it was like the Wonder Woman Facebook page was like advertising some like women's shoes website, and they're giving away a free copy of it. And I signed up for that because like, oh well, I'll just try my luck, whatever. And then I signed up for like a bunch of different contests as well. And I the one I ended up winning was it was like the women's shoes website. I'm like, oh, that's yeah.
Awesome.
That's great though.
Yeah, and it's cool because I don't know if you guys have had like there's Warner Brothers has this thing called like the Warner Brothers Movie All Access app. And so basically, if you buy movies through like Ultraviolet or whatever, you can like stream them through there. And if you because like right now I have Wonder Woman on there, and as you're watching the movie, like little like info blurbs come up, like, oh, did you know that when they were filming this scene, this was going on, or like at age 21, Gal Gadot was modeling here, or like it's really cool stuff going on as you watch the movie. Yeah, so it's almost like a little like commentary thing as you're watching the movie. It's pretty cool. So if you guys ever have a chance to check out that app, I would say so.
That's cool.
And if Warner Brothers want me to pay me for advertising your app, I'll definitely take a paycheck.
Hint, hint.
Yeah, but also I think with that being said, that's pretty much all I have to say on the subject. I mean, I realistically I talk about Zack all day, but I know we all have our own schedules to get to today.
Okay, yeah, I do have something to say, like, just as a passing comment, I guess. Which is that, like, I didn't get to really bring this up earlier on, but the first time I ever saw a Zack Snyder movie really was Man of Steel. Yeah, I'm a baby, I know, okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, it was Man of Steel, and that was the first piece of Superman media that I'd seriously consumed. Like, I really, up till then, I hadn't seen Smallville, I hadn't seen any of the previous Superman movies. I'd seen posters, and, you know, maybe I'd seen a few scenes here and there, but, like, and I knew who Superman was, obviously, but, like, I'd never seen, like, a full Superman media before, and that was my first exposure. And yeah, I didn't really become a big DC fan until a few years later, but like, and I realized that, like, that first experience of watching Man of Steel really defined the entire way I see DC, and the entire way I look at the superhero movie genre as a whole. And like, and because of that, like, I fell into this whole DC hole, and then Batman v Superman came out, and then Suicide Squad, and then Wonder Woman, and I just want to, like, I don't know, maybe offer up my thanks, or like just acknowledgement that, like, Zack Snyder is defining this entire new generation of fans and of DC movies, and what DC means to this bunch of fans, what all these DC characters are gonna be to a future generation of fans like me, who are new to this and who are coming into this fresh, and like, it's defining this entire new experience of what DC movies are. Like, I hear from older fans about how, you know, they had to change their perceptions over time, and like how there are differing perceptions of what, like, Superman and Batman and all the DC characters are, but like, my experience has been defined really by Zack Snyder, and I've just it's been pretty amazing to be able to have a set of characters like that way, and like to start from that perspective, and to just see that I'm so lucky that, like, this was the first thing that I ever saw of the DCEU. Yeah, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think I can say the same.
That is awesome.
I can say something similar too for myself, at least, in that as I was a kid, when I was first a Superman fan, I kept thinking to myself, by the time I'm an adult, you know, I'm gonna be over Superman. Like, I'm not really gonna care. Zack really reinvigorated my interest in Superman. Not that it ever really went anywhere, because that I was always still a diehard Superman fan, but he again reinvigorated my interest in Superman because, again, he made him so relatable, and he gave us a Superman that, to me, embodied everything that I would want to hope to be in a person. Not even let alone, like, what I want to see in a Superman story, but he gave us a character with so many layers, and films with so many layers, and that I'm always going to appreciate what he was able to do, and to be able to bring all of us fans together, some of us who obviously weren't even huge superhero fans to start out with, and we were able to all come together and do these, like, come like on Tumblr and Twitter, all these different places, and just share our love of his films, and just to come together and be positive and create a positive environment to just be ourselves and express our thoughts and feelings on his movies. And I feel like I've said this a bunch of times too, but I'm always so thankful that Zack was able to do that for us and to give us the space to do that in.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Me personally.
Yeah, and I'm so glad for, like, this entire fan community as well.
Yeah.
We're so toxic, though. Look at us hate on each other and turn on each other and eat each other alive because we're so stinking toxic. So,
Yes.
I'm done.
No.
Sorry. I'll be here.
Me personally, I'm just so grateful that Superman character was given into the hands of such kind and caring person like Zack Snyder. I couldn't have imagined anybody else to introduce Superman to a new generation.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah.
Well
so
said.
Just a beautiful way to start a new era for like DC characters.
Oh
you know?
yeah.
Yep.
Like this is why they are immortals, because we're just so lucky to like have these stories fall into capable hands.
Yep.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I think on that note, unless any of you guys have anything more to say, I think that's a good probably place to end this particular episode.
Yep.
Yay.
Yeah, so
Thank you, Zack Snyder.
yeah, seriously.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very
Zach.
much,
If
Zach.
So much.
Zach, if you ever do happen to catch any of these episodes, or this episode in particular, we just want to know how appreciated you are within the DC movie fandom, and that we're gonna follow you no matter what, and you don't deserve any of the hate that you get towards yourself, and we wish you a very happy life.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Yeah.
So that being said, so yeah, again, that's probably a good place to end it. So if you guys kind of want to go back around and tell everyone where they can find you online.
I am Artyom, and you can find me on Tumblr as Grey Kung Lao.
I'm Lily from Lily Loves Comics on Tumblr.
I'm Jean from Badge Activity on Tumblr.
And I'm Katie. I'm Story Advocate on Tumblr.
And then you guys can find me at True Man of Steel on Tumblr. You can look me up on True Man of Steel on Twitter. Here on YouTube at Nerdy Nick. That's where all of our podcasts go up. And you can always check out our podcast on Tumblr as well. I always end up posting the links there anyway. Thank you guys again for joining me. This was probably one of my favorite episodes of our podcast that we've done so far, because I love Zack's films and I love just being able to talk about his influence on us. And I can't wait to delve further into what his influence means moving forward in further episodes. So thank you guys again for doing this with me. It's always great.
It
You're
is
welcome.
awesome.
Thanks,
Thank you
Nick.
so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes,
you guys for
definitely.
always joining me. It'd be a very lonely podcast if it was just me. So thank you guys all for doing this.
True. Although it would be fun to watch you do all the voices, you know. So.
Yeah. All right. So I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and thanks for joining me. For everyone else listening, thank you for listening. Spread the word of this podcast out. Hopefully Zach can hear it. I just want him to know that, you know, we as fans do appreciate everything he's done for us in terms of the films, and that he doesn't deserve any of the hate he gets towards him, and that his films do have an impact on us and our lives as fans. So I just wanted to thank Zach so much for what he's been able to do. And if you guys like this podcast, please go ahead and share it. Let people know in the DC fandom that this podcast is out there, and share it so we can get more people listening, and maybe we can get more people on who you guys want to hear. Thank you guys for listening, and if you guys like to see here, go ahead and hit subscribe below. We do content like this all the time. Actually, with the new fall shows coming up, I'll be doing reviews for some of the CW shows. I'm not sure which ones exactly, because I'm not sure whether I want to do all 4 shows on the CW, but we'll see when we get there. You can check out my previous videos as well on my channel. You can check those out, as well as our previous DCEU commentaries. Our Wonder Woman commentary should be coming out sometime in the next couple weeks. You guys can check that out, as well as any of the future videos that will be on my channel. Thank you guys for listening, and until next time, have a good one.